My brother's face went white when I announced I owned the penthouse he'd been bragging about buying for months. 200 guests watched him freeze, mid-sentence, watched my mother grip my father's arm, watched 32 years of family hierarchy shatter in 10 seconds. "This is impossible," Nathan whispered, his voice cracking. "You sell home decorations online." I smiled from the top of the staircase, every eye in the room on me. "I built a $35 million company while you played with Dad's money, and I just bought your dream house with cash." The silence that followed was delicious. But let me back up, because you need to understand how a girl they called cute for having business ambitions became the woman who destroyed her golden child brother in front of Atlanta's elite. If you've ever been invisible in your own family, if you've ever watched mediocrity get worshipped while your success got ignored, hit that like button right now, subscribe because this revenge story gets better, and comment below whether I went too far, because honestly, I'm just getting started. Let me take you back to where this really started. 3 months earlier, on a Wednesday evening that would change everything, I sat in Atlanta traffic on my way to Buckhead, my hands gripping the steering wheel of my Tesla as I mentally prepared myself for another dinner at my parents' house. The mansions of Atlanta's wealthiest neighborhood rose around me like monuments to old money and older prejudices. I'd made this drive 1,000 times, and every single time I had to give myself the same pep talk. It won't be that bad. Maybe this time will be different. Maybe they'll actually ask about my life. I was 29 years old, and I was still hoping my parents would see me. The Vance family estate sat on 2 acres of perfectly manicured lawn, all white columns and Southern charm, the kind of house that appeared in Atlanta Magazine's Homes of Distinction issue. I'd grown up in this house in its shadow, really always feeling like I was playing a supporting role in someone else's story. That someone being Nathan, my older brother, the sun around which my parents' universe revolved. I pulled into the circular driveway and sat for a moment watching the warm light spilling from the windows. From the outside, it looked like the perfect family home, but I'd learned a long time ago that the prettiest houses often hide the ugliest truths. Eleanor Vance opened the door before I could knock her blonde hair perfectly styled, her smile perfectly practiced and perfectly cold. "Alexandra, you're late." "Traffic on Peachtree was terrible," I said, stepping inside. "Sorry." "Nathan's been here for an hour," she said, already turning away. "He came straight from closing a deal. A very important deal." Of course he did. Nathan was always closing very important deals, or at least that's what my parents believed. The dining room was exactly as I remembered from countless uncomfortable dinners. Crystal chandelier antique table that sat 12 place settings that cost more than most people's monthly rent. My father, Robert Vance, sat at the head of the table in his usual position of authority, a scotch already in hand. Nathan lounged in the chair to his right, looking like he'd just stepped out of a Brooks Brothers catalog, all smug satisfaction and inherited confidence. "There she is," Nathan said, not bothering to stand. "The career woman. How's the little online shop going, sis?" I felt my jaw tighten, but I forced a smile. "It's going well, actually. We just hit some major milestones this quarter." "That's nice, dear," my mother said in the same tone she might use to compliment a child's finger painting. "Now sit down. We've been waiting to share Nathan's news." I hadn't even taken my coat off, but I sat. I always sat. I always waited. I always played my part in this performance. "Nathan closed the Riverside development deal," my father announced, pride radiating from every word. $3.7 million. My son, the financial genius. "Congratulations," I said, and I meant it. I'd never wished failure on Nathan. I just wished success for myself mattered half as much. "It's not just about the money," Nathan said, swirling his wine. "It's about the connections, the prestige, the lifestyle it affords." He leaned back in his chair, the picture of relaxed confidence. "Actually, that's part of why I wanted everyone together tonight. I'm making another major move. I'm buying a penthouse." My mother actually gasped with delight. "Oh, Nathan, where?" "West Paces Ferry Road," he said, letting the address hang in the air. West Paces was the address in Atlanta where tech executives and entertainment moguls lived in modern glass towers with views that made you feel like you owned the city. 5.2 million, 3,200 square feet, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Buckhead. It's perfect for the bachelor lifestyle I'm cultivating. "That's wonderful, darling," my mother gushed. Our son in West Paces, Robert, can you imagine? I took a sip of water, trying to figure out how to insert myself into this conversation without being dismissed. Actually, I've been looking at places too. I'm thinking about buying something, maybe even in that same area. The laughter that erupted around the table hit me like a physical blow. You, Nathan said, actually wiping his eyes. Buying in West Paces, baby sis, those places start at $3 million. Minimum. What are you going to do save up from your little Etsy store? It's not an Etsy store, I said quietly. It's a full-scale e-commerce company. Sure, my father said, waving his hand dismissively. It's very cute that you have your little hobby, Alexandra, but let's talk about real business. Nathan, tell us more about the financing. And just like that, I disappeared. I sat at that table for another hour and a half while they discussed Nathan's brilliance, Nathan's vision, Nathan's future. My mother brought out the family photo albums to show him baby pictures as if he needed reminding that he'd been the chosen one from birth. My father discussed investment strategies and wealth building as if I wasn't even there. You know, Nathan said somewhere around dessert, his face flushed with wine and ego. I'm also diversifying my portfolio, getting into the tech space, e-commerce actually. He looked at me with something that might have been pity if it weren't so condescending. Taking a significant stake in a company called Modern Hearth. They do home goods furniture, that sort of thing, really going to disrupt the market. I felt my blood run cold. Modern Hearth, my biggest competitor. The company that had been trying to undercut my prices and poach my suppliers for 6 months. And Nathan was investing in them. He was funding the very company trying to destroy mine, and he didn't even know it. Sounds interesting, I managed to say. It's more than interesting, Nathan said. It's going to be massive. The founder is aggressive hungry. Reminds me of myself. We're going to absolutely crush the competition in this space. Anyone playing around with artisanal home goods or boutique furniture is going to get steamrolled. He looked right at me when he said it. He looked right at me and smiled. That was the moment. That was the exact moment when something inside me shifted. I'd spent my entire life trying to be good enough, successful enough, worthy enough to earn their respect. And here was Nathan accidentally threatening to destroy my life's work, while my parents applauded, not even curious enough to ask what company I ran. I should go, I said, standing up abruptly. Early morning tomorrow. Of course, dear, my mother said, already turning back to Nathan. Oh, before you go. She pushed a takeout container toward me. Leftovers, no sense in them going to waste. I looked at the container of scraps, the final insult in a night of 1,000 cuts, and something crystallized inside me. They would never see me. They would never ask. They would never care. Unless I made them. I drove home in a white-hot fury, my hands shaking on the wheel. When I pulled into the garage of my midtown condo, I sat in the dark for a long moment, breathing hard. Then I pulled out my phone and called Michael. Michael Chin had been my COO for 3 years, and more importantly, he'd been my friend since college. While my family saw me as a girl playing at business, Michael had watched me build an empire from scratch. He answered on the second ring. Alex, it's almost 11. What's wrong? The penthouse on West Paces, I said, my voice eerily calm. The one listed at $5.2 million. I want it. Nathan's penthouse, Michael asked carefully. He knew about my family. He knew everything. Yes. Alex, that's a lot of money to spend on proving a point. It's not about proving a point, I said, though we both knew that was a lie. I want that house, and I want him to never set foot in it. There was a long pause. Then Michael said, I'll call Sophia first thing in the morning. Sophia Martinez had been my best friend since freshman year at Georgia Tech. While I'd gone into business, she'd gone to law school and was now one of the most ruthless real estate attorneys in Atlanta. If anyone could make this happen, she could. I barely slept that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, running the numbers in my head. The Perennial Home had done $35 million in revenue last year. We'd grown 200% year over year. I had $8 million in liquid assets and a credit line that could cover the rest. I could afford this. I could absolutely afford this. But more than that, I could make them see me. The next morning, I met Sophia at a coffee shop in Virginia Highland. She was already at a corner table, her laptop open, 3 manila folders stacked beside her espresso. You're serious about this? She asked as I sat down. Completely. Okay, then here's how we do it. She opened the first folder. We set up an LLC, create a shell company to make the purchase. Keep your name completely out of it until closing. The listing agent is Mary Holbrook. I've worked with her before, actually donated to her charity foundation last year. I can get us a viewing today and an offer submitted by tonight. I want to pay cash, I said. All of it. No financing, no contingencies, close as fast as legally possible. Sophia's eyebrows shot up. All cash, Alex, that's $5.2 million? Nathan will have to get financing approved. That takes time, even with my father co-signing, which I guarantee he will. If we come in with a cash offer, full price, quick close, we can lock it up before Nathan even submits his loan application. A slow smile spread across Sophia's face. You've really thought this through. I've thought about nothing else since last night. This is petty, Sophia said, but she was already pulling out her phone. I love it. Give me 4 hours. I spent those 4 hours at my office in a gleaming high-rise in downtown Atlanta. The Perennial Home occupied the entire 15th floor, all open workspace and modern design. My company. My creation. Built from nothing but an idea and a refusal to accept that I wasn't good enough. Michael found me in my office, staring at the wall of awards and press clippings I'd never shown my family. Forbes 30 Under 30. Atlanta Business Chronicle's Entrepreneur of the Year. Front page of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution's business section with the headline, The Home Goods Queen of the South. They've never asked to see this office, I said quietly. Not once in 5 years. Their loss, Michael said. Sophia called. The viewing is at 3. She thinks we can have an offer accepted by tomorrow morning if you're willing to go in strong. Full asking price, cash, 30-day close. That's very strong, Alex. I want him to lose something, I said, turning to face Michael. Just once I want Nathan to lose something he cares about. At 3 o'clock, Sophia and I stood in the penthouse at West Paces, and I understood immediately why Nathan wanted it. Walls of glass overlooked the Atlanta skyline. The kitchen had top-of-the-line Wolf appliances. The master suite was bigger than my first apartment. It was stunning, powerful, a statement of success so loud it couldn't be ignored. I'll take it, I said. Mary Holbrook, the listing agent, smiled. Don't you want to see the second bedroom, the terrace? I'll take it, I repeated. Full asking price, cash, close in 30 days. Have your attorney contact mine. I nodded to Sophia. Mary's smile widened into something genuine. I have a feeling I'm going to enjoy working with you. Sophia had the paperwork drawn up by 6 p.m. By 8 p.m., we'd submitted the offer through the LLC Vanguard Properties, a name carefully chosen to sound like a faceless investment company. By 9 a.m. the next morning, the offer was accepted. I was sitting in a pitch meeting with a European supplier when Sophia's text came through. Deal accepted, offer signed. Nathan never had a chance. I excused myself from the meeting and walked to the window, looking out over the city that had once seemed too big for a girl from a family that would never believe in her. I'd just spent $5.2 million, and I'd never felt more powerful in my life. For the next 2 weeks, I played the role I'd always played. I went to one more family dinner. I smiled through another round of Nathan's bragging. I listened as he talked about his loan application for his penthouse, how the bank was processing his paperwork, how he was working with a designer to plan renovations. It's taking longer than I thought, he admitted over my mother's pot roast. The approval process is slow. I'm sure it will work out, son, my father said. You're a Vance. Banks love us. I cut my meat into small, precise pieces and said nothing. Then 3 weeks after my offer was accepted, I got the call I'd been waiting for. Sophia's voice was gleeful. Alex, I just got off the phone with Mary. Someone else got the West Paces penthouse. All cash offer closed in record time. Nathan's loan application just got rejected because the property is no longer available. Who bought it? I asked innocently. Some investment company called Vanguard Properties. Never heard of them. Interesting, I said. Listen, I've been thinking. I want to throw a party, a housewarming party, at the penthouse. Sophia laughed. You're evil. I love it. I want to invite everyone, Atlanta's elite, business leaders, press, and my family, of course. Of course, Sophia said. When? 3 months from now. I want time to furnish it perfectly. I want it to be undeniably, unmistakably mine. The next day at Sunday brunch, Nathan was in a foul mood. His usual swagger was gone, replaced by a tight jaw and short answers. "The West Paces deal fell through," he finally admitted when my father pressed him. "Some anonymous buyer swooped in with a cash offer. The seller took it before my financing could clear." "That's terrible, darling," my mother cooed. "But there will be other properties." "I wanted that one," Nathan said, and for the first time ever, I heard something almost vulnerable in his voice. Almost. I sipped my mimosa and savored the moment. 2 weeks later, my mother called. "Alexandra, you got an invitation too." "To what?" I asked, though I knew exactly what she meant. "A housewarming party at the West Paces penthouse, the one Nathan wanted. It's from someone named Vanguard Properties. Your father thinks it might be one of Nathan's business contacts, maybe an olive branch. We're all invited." "How nice," I said. "I'll be there." I spent the next month transforming the penthouse into something that was undeniably me. I filled it with pieces from the Perennial Home's luxury collection. Original art from Atlanta artists, a custom kitchen setup that had been featured in Architectural Digest. Every detail was perfect. Every corner spoke of taste and wealth and success that couldn't be denied. Michael helped me plan the party itself. 200 guests, catered by Atlanta's hottest restaurant. A signature cocktail designed by a James Beard winner. Every detail calculated to impress, too established to make a statement so loud it echoed. "You know this is going to detonate your relationship with your family," Michael said as we finalized the guest list. "What relationship?" I asked. "The one where they pretend I don't exist, where my brother tries to destroy my company without even knowing it's mine." "Fair point," Michael conceded. The night of the party arrived. I stood at the top of the floating staircase in my black Valentino gown, watching guests arrive through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Atlanta's elite filed in champagne flutes in hand, admiring the space, the view, the obvious wealth on display. I saw the editor of Atlanta Magazine, the CEO of Turner Broadcasting, the owner of the Hawks, and then fashionably late the Vance family. My mother swept in first, her eyes already cataloging every detail, every price tag. My father followed, chest puffed with the confidence of a man who'd never been challenged. And Nathan strutted in like he owned the place, probably assuming this was some networking opportunity, some chance to rub elbows with the new money in town. They didn't see me at first. I watched them accept champagne, watched Nathan schmooze with a tech CEO, watched my mother whisper to my father about the nouveau riche who'd stolen Nathan's house. I watched them exist in a world where I was still invisible, still insignificant, still the daughter playing at business while the son built empires. I let them settle in, let them get comfortable, let them assume this was just another party where they'd network and condescend and never once think about me. Then I nodded to Michael. He moved to the center of the room and gently tapped a fork against his champagne flute. The sound cut through the conversation, drawing every eye. "Ladies and gentlemen," Michael said, his voice carrying across the space. "If I could have your attention, please, our host would like to say a few words." That's when I began my descent down the staircase. Slowly, deliberately. Every eye in the room turned toward me. I watched the confusion bloom on my family's faces. Why was I here? Why was I coming down those stairs? I reached the bottom step and took a champagne flute from a passing waiter. The room was silent now, waiting. "Thank you all for coming," I said, my voice steady and strong. "My family is here tonight, and I have to say it means so much to have them present for this moment." I found them in the crowd-locked eyes with Nathan. "You see, my parents have always worried about my future. They've been concerned that my little hobby, my cute online shop, wouldn't be enough to sustain me, that I'd never be able to compete in the real world of business." I paused, letting the words settle. Confusion rippled across my mother's face. My father's eyes narrowed. "So I'm thrilled they're here to see what that hobby has bought." I gestured around the penthouse with my champagne flute. "Welcome to my home." The silence that followed was absolute. Then chaos erupted. Nathan's champagne glass hit the floor. The crystal shattered, the sound sharp in the stunned quiet. His mouth opened and closed like a fish. My mother actually stumbled, caught by my father, whose face had gone from confident to corpse pale in seconds. "What?" The word came from Nathan like he'd been punched in the stomach. "This is my home," I repeated, loving every syllable. "I bought it 3 months ago. Cash, $5.2 million, closed in 30 days through my LLC Vanguard Properties. But how? My mother's voice was faint. You sell trinkets online. Before I could answer, Jennifer Richardson, the editor of Atlanta magazine, appeared at my elbow. Trinkets, Eleanor, surely you know about the Perennial Home. It's only the fastest-growing luxury home goods company in the Southeast. Didn't Alex tell you she's been profiled in Forbes Atlanta magazine and the Wall Street Journal? My mother's face went even paler. The Perennial Home, that's you. $35 million in revenue last year, I said pleasantly. 200% year-over-year growth. We're opening a flagship showroom in Ponce City Market next month. I took a sip of champagne. But please enjoy the party. The catering is from Bacchanalia. The art is all from local Atlanta artists. And everything you see from the furniture to the light fixtures is from my company's luxury collection. I started to walk past them to mingle with the guests who actually mattered, but Nathan grabbed my arm. His face was red now, the shock giving way to anger. This is insane, he hissed. You can't possibly afford this. Who's backing you? What old man did you get to invest in your little project? I pulled my arm free, my voice ice cold. The Perennial Home generated $35 million in revenue last year, Nathan. I could buy 3 of these penthouses and not blink. Nobody is backing me. I built this alone while you were playing with Daddy's money. But you never said anything, my father interjected, moving closer. You never mentioned you were running a company of this size. You never asked, I said simply. Not once in 5 years did any of you ask me what I actually did. You assumed it was an Etsy store, a hobby, something cute and small and insignificant, because that's what I was to you. My mother tried to recover, tried to slip into the role of supportive parent. Well, we always knew you were smart, Alexandra. We just didn't realize the scope of what you were building. Don't, I said quietly. Don't do that. Don't rewrite history now that it's convenient. Nathan's face twisted into something ugly. Modern Hearth is going to crush you anyway. I've invested heavily in them and they're going to dominate the market. This is just a temporary win, sis. I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Modern Hearth. Right. How's that investment going, Nathan? It's going great, he said, but I heard the uncertainty creeping into his voice. They're aggressive hungry. They're taking market share every day. From whom? I asked innocently. Which companies are they hurting? I don't know the specifics, Nathan blustered. That's not my area of expertise. I just know they're winning. They're not, I said flatly. In fact, over the past 6 months, the Perennial Home has systematically acquired 7 of Modern Hearth's primary suppliers. We've undercut their pricing on every major product line. And just last week, we closed on the purchase of their main distribution warehouse in Chamblee. Nathan's face went from red to white. You're the competition they've been fighting. I'm the reason they're losing, I corrected. You invested in a company designed to destroy my Nathan. How much did you put in? He didn't answer, but I could see it in his eyes. Too much. Way too much. I need to make a phone call, Nathan said, already pulling out his phone as he stumbled toward the terrace. I turned back to my parents. My father looked like he was trying to solve an equation that didn't make sense. My mother was crying, actually crying, mascara running down her perfectly made-up face. How could you do this? She whispered. To your own family. I bought a house, I said. That's all. A house I wanted with money I earned. If that feels like an attack, maybe you should ask yourself why. I walked away from them then because staying would have meant explaining, and I was done explaining myself to people who'd never cared to understand. The party continued around us. Guests who'd witnessed the exchange looked at me with new respect, with understanding. This wasn't just a housewarming. It was a declaration of independence. A woman telling her family she was done being invisible. I spent the rest of the evening networking, laughing, enjoying the space I'd earned. My family left early, slinking out without goodbyes. I didn't watch them go. But the real bombshell came 3 months later. I was in my office when Michael walked in, his face serious. Alex, you need to see this. He handed me his tablet open to a news article. Modern Hearth files for bankruptcy, the headline screamed. E-commerce darling's spectacular collapse. I read through the article, my coffee growing cold in my hand. Modern Hearth had imploded, supply chain failures, inability to fulfill orders, warehouse issues, and hidden in the 3rd paragraph was Nathan's name listed as a major investor who'd lost everything. There's more, Michael said quietly. I have a source at their bank. Nathan didn't just invest his own money. He convinced your parents to co-sign on a major loan. They put up their house as collateral. I felt my stomach drop. Their house in Buckhead. Everything, Michael confirmed. They believed in him. Or more accurately, they believed in their image of him as the golden child who couldn't fail. He lost it all, Alex. His investment, their retirement, the house, everything. I should have felt victorious. I should have felt justified. Instead, I felt strangely empty. My phone rang. My mother. I'd been ignoring her calls for weeks, but something made me answer this one. Alexandra. Her voice was small broken. We need to talk, in person, please. When I asked, Sunday, 5 p.m. at your house, if you'll allow us. I'll allow it, I said and hung up. That Sunday, I stood at the top of my floating staircase and watched my family enter my home for the second time. But this time, there was no party, no audience, no celebration. Just 4 people and the wreckage of a family that had never worked. They looked terrible. My father's suit was rumpled unpressed. My mother's hair wasn't styled. Nathan couldn't even look at me. They looked for the first time in my life human, fallible, small. I didn't invite them to sit. I stood above them looking down from my position of power, and I waited. We need your help. My father said the words clearly painful. Nathan's investment in modern Hearth was a disaster. We didn't know it was your competitor. We didn't know you were systematically destroying it. You didn't know I existed, I corrected. There's a difference. We know you're successful now, my mother tried. We see that. We were wrong about your company. My company has a name, I said coldly. The Perennial Home. Use it. The Perennial Home, my father repeated dutifully. We underestimated you. We're sorry, but we need your help. The bank is foreclosing. We have 60 days to come up with the loan amount or we lose the house. Everything. We're asking you to loan us the money. How much, I asked, though I already knew. $1.8 million, Nathan said, his voice barely above a whisper. Plus interest and penalties, 2.2 total. I walked down the stairs slowly, deliberately. I crossed the living room and stood directly in front of my brother. The golden child, the chosen one. The man who'd dismissed my life's work as a hobby while trying to destroy it. Tell me something, Nathan, I said softly. When you invested in Modern Hearth, did you know it was my competitor? No, he said. I swear. But if you had known, would you have cared? He opened his mouth, closed it. We both knew the answer. You tried to crush me, I said. Not out of malice, but out of something worse. Out of complete indifference. I was so far beneath your notice that you didn't even bother to learn what I did before investing in my destruction. We're family, my mother said desperately. Blood is blood, Alexandra. You can't just abandon us. I turned to her. You're right. Blood is blood. So, let me ask you something, Mother. In 32 years, how many times did you ask about my business? How many times did you come to my office? How many awards did you celebrate with me? How many times did you choose me over Nathan for anything ever? She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. I'll save you the math, I said. 0. The answer is 0. You weren't my family. You were Nathan's cheerleading squad that occasionally remembered I existed. So you'll let us lose everything? My father asked, his voice hardening. After everything we did for you, we raised you, fed you, put you through college. You did the bare minimum required by law, I said. And you're right. You gave me a lot. You gave me drive. You gave me motivation. You gave me the absolute determination to succeed so completely that you could never dismiss me again. And I have. I succeeded. On my own. Without you. I moved to the door and opened it. Cold air rushed in, and with it a sense of finality. Get out of my house. Alexandra, please, my mother begged. We're desperate. You're always desperate when you need something, I said. Where was this desperation when I needed you to just see me, to just ask about my life? To just once in 32 years be proud of me before I had to shove my success in your face. We are proud. My father tried. We just didn't understand the scope. No, I said firmly. You didn't care to understand. There's a difference. Nathan cared about a penthouse, so you learned every detail. Nathan cared about Modern Hearth, so you mortgaged your life for it. I cared about building something meaningful, and you called it cute. I held the door wider. Leave, and don't call me again. You're really going to do this? Nathan asked, anger finally breaking through his shock. "You're going to destroy us!" "I'm not destroying you," I said. "I'm simply declining to save you from the consequences of your own choices. That's different." They left. My mother was crying. My father was rigid with suppressed rage. Nathan looked back, once his face a mask of betrayal and disbelief. I closed the door on all of it. I stood in the silence of my beautiful home and felt nothing but peace. The next months were transformative. The Perennial Home continued to grow. We expanded into new markets, launched a luxury furniture line, opened that flagship store in Ponce City Market. The press loved the story of the self-made woman who'd built an empire while her family dismissed her. I was profiled in Elle Inc. and Business Insider. Every article mentioned my family's shock at the housewarming party, the dramatic reveal, the sweet justice of proving everyone wrong. My parents lost the Buckhead house. They moved into a modest condo in Vinings. Nathan had to file for personal bankruptcy. My mother's social standing, the thing she'd valued above almost everything, was destroyed. They were no longer the Vance family of Buckhead. They were cautionary tale, a reminder that pride comes before a fall. And I let it happen. I blocked their numbers. I ignored their emails. When they showed up at my office building, security turned them away at my instruction. I was done. Completely, utterly done. It was Sophia who finally confronted me 6 months after I'd closed the door on my family. We were having dinner at Bacchanalia, celebrating the Perennial Home's expansion into the Northeast market, when she put down her wine glass and looked at me seriously. "Are you happy?" she asked. "Of course," I said automatically. "Business is amazing. We just signed the deal with Bloomingdale's. I'm crushing it." "That's not what I asked," Sophia said. "I asked if you're happy. You, Alex, not the company. You." I opened my mouth to give another automatic answer, but stopped. Was I happy I was successful? I was wealthy. I was respected. But happy? I won, I said instead. I proved them wrong. Isn't that enough? "Only you can answer that," Sophia said gently. "But I'll tell you what I see. I see my best friend spending every waking hour at work. I see someone who's built a beautiful home and never actually lives in it. I see someone who replaced a toxic family with a company that can't love you back. They don't deserve my forgiveness," I said. "Probably not," Sophia agreed. "But do you deserve to spend the rest of your life defined by their rejection? Because that's what you're doing, Alex. Every decision you make is still about them, about proving them wrong, about making them pay. When do you get to just live for yourself?" I wanted to argue, but I couldn't, because she was right. That night, I stood in my penthouse looking out at the Atlanta skyline. This house, this beautiful space that was supposed to be my vindication, had never felt like home. It felt like a museum to my success, a monument to my revenge, but not a home. I thought about my parents in their modest condo struggling to rebuild. I thought about Nathan humiliated and broken. I thought about the satisfaction I'd expected to feel and the emptiness I felt instead. And I realized something important. I'd spent so long proving I was better than their opinion of me that I'd never stopped to figure out who I actually was, what I actually wanted, what actually made me happy beyond the validation of success. I didn't forgive them that night. I'm still not sure I ever will. What they did, how they treated me, it wasn't okay. It will never be okay. But I realized that carrying the weight of that anger, that need for revenge, that constant drive to prove them wrong, it was exhausting, and it was keeping me from actually living the life I'd fought so hard to build. The next morning, I called Michael into my office. "I want to change something about how we run the company," I said. "What?" "Everything's I said. "We're successful because I worked 80-hour weeks, because I never stopped, because I pushed harder than anyone, but I don't want to do that anymore. I want to build a life, not just a company." Michael smiled. "I think that's the first healthy thing I've heard you say in 5 years. We restructured. We hired more staff. I delegated responsibilities I'd been clutching like lifelines. I started leaving the office at 6 p.m. I joined a book club. I took a pottery class. I did things that had nothing to do with proving anyone wrong and everything to do with finding out what I actually enjoyed. And slowly, gradually, the penthouse started to feel less like a monument and more like a home. I still see my family around Atlanta sometimes, at charity events and restaurants, at the theater. We don't speak. We don't acknowledge each other. Maybe one day that will change. Maybe one day I'll be ready for some version of reconciliation. But not yet, and maybe not ever. And I'm okay with that. Because here's what I learned. Revenge doesn't heal you. Success doesn't heal you. Proving people wrong doesn't heal you. The only thing that heals you is deciding that their opinion of you was never the point, that your worth isn't determined by whether they see it, that you don't need their validation to live an extraordinary life. I built an empire to prove I wasn't invisible. But in the end, the real victory wasn't the empire. It was the moment I stopped caring if they saw it. 3 years after that housewarming party, I threw another party at the penthouse. But this time, my parents weren't on the guest list. Neither was Nathan. Instead, I filled the space with people who'd actually been there. Sophia, who'd helped me plot my revenge and then talked me down from its ledges. Michael, who'd believed in me before I was someone worth believing in. My team from the Perennial Home. The people who'd built this dream with me. Friends from my pottery class, members of my book club, people who knew me as Alex, not as the girl who proved her family wrong. We laughed, we danced, we celebrated not a victory over anyone but a life well lived. And when I stood on that floating staircase again, looking down at a room full of people who actually cared about me, I realized something profound. This was the moment I'd been waiting for my whole life. Not the moment my family finally saw me, the moment I finally saw myself. The unseen empire wasn't the one I'd built in business. It was the one I'd built in my life. Invisible to my family because they never bothered to look, but solid and real and mine. And that was enough. So let me ask you something. Have you ever spent so long trying to prove someone wrong that you forgot to prove yourself right? Have you ever built your whole life around someone else's validation? And if you got that validation tomorrow, would it even matter anymore? Would it change who you've become? Comment below and let me know your story. And if this one resonated with you, if you've ever felt invisible in your own family, hit that like button. Subscribe for more stories about finding yourself after being lost in someone else's expectations. Because the truth is, the best revenge isn't success, it's happiness. And I finally have both. You decide for yourself. Did I go too far or did I go exactly far enough? The comments are yours.